This is Envision Self-Healing Podcast, episode number 36. Hi, I'm Will Fuller.
And I'm Richard Miller.
And we are the co-creators of EnvisionSelfHealing.com and are dedicated in helping you improve your eyesight and quality of life
by taking healing into your own hands. The topic of the week this week is 3 successful strategies for learning eye exercises, Part 2, Reinforcement. And in the second half of the podcast, we're going to be answering a question from a YouTube viewer, a young one who's 18, and he says, I've lost a substantial amount of vision. What should I do?
So, Richard, how's the world of self-healing been treating you this week?
Well, it's been a week of little vignettes of insight, shall we say. Little vignettes of insight.
It's been a week of vineyards. I've just been drunk all week.
Well, yeah. We're not going there. But so we just had lunch together, and I was telling you about one of the vignettes is suddenly my left eye became more active and clearer. So my overall vision was clearer, just even walking to lunch. But I've been noticing it all day.
Nice. And
a little bit yesterday. And for the as much as I'm a vision improvement person, it's like, what did I do that differently? I guess I was like, I did something differently. To get this little boost.
Yeah.
And we've been working on a video project in which we're doing the exercises again, and I realized we were doing some exercises that I kind of don't do. So they're down my list in priority because I have optic atrophy, I have myopia. To me, those are the higher on my list issues that I need to deal with. Mm-hmm. And we were doing exercises for astigmatism, and I guess specifically for astigmatism.
Yeah.
We were doing the astigmatism exercise, and I was the subject in the video. And we were doing eye rotations, in which, you were the subject, but I was doing them as you were doing them.
Well, you were the cameraman.
I was the cameraman doing
So when everyone sees the video and they see the video rolling around in circles, that's because Richard was filming and doing the exercise at the same time.
Right. So I can't imagine what else it was except doing those 2 exercises.
Yeah.
Because it feels like my left eye is suddenly sharper, and I have astigmatism in both eyes. And as I say, I kind of downplayed it. It's like, well, that's the lesser of my things to deal with.
Yeah.
So it sort of proves to you that you do need to deal with all your issues.
Yeah, and it's funny because I was secretly also noticing the same feelings in my eyes after doing the eye rotation, because we did a few shots of it.
So we had to do a few takes, yeah.
I did quite a few eye rotations that day.
Mm-hmm.
And the next day I could really feel the muscles, the extraocular muscles in my eye. And it really made me realize that I'm not using them as much as I should be.
Yeah, well, even for me, when I first did the rotations when I was watching you do the rotations and doing them, my eyes felt kind of painful in certain directions. And now I can do them and they don't feel painful in any direction. So it's amazing it happened that quickly.
Yeah.
And I feel a little silly that I haven't been putting that higher up on my list.
Yeah. Well, it just goes to show, even as vision improvement practitioners and public figures, then we can't do them all the time, and then that we do have to prioritize it at some point.
Right. And speaking of priorities, that was the other thing. This is sort of self-healing. It's that whole time management motivation thing. And finishing up the yard. Now we've moved past my house. The house is done. We're finishing the yard. And so it's still eating up a lot of my time. So I went to a time management professional who is a friend of mine, actually.
Okay.
And
were you late?
That's probably true. I don't remember. I was late, probably. I don't remember. I didn't have it on my calendar, so I couldn't tell you.
Right.
So he is getting me on. Well, anyway, that's a long story. But the first thing he did with me was, let's draw out the activities in your life and then put them in order of priority.
Okay.
And I did this, and vision improvement. Granted, it's my profession, so it moved up the list because of my profession and because of my vision. But it's up there you'll be happy to know, above relationships. So
wow, that's impressive.
Isn't that impressive?
Yeah. Now whether this list is honest or not, let's bear in mind it is just a list.
It's true. Relationship was next. So anyway, so I had this up here, and then guess where house was? House, managing the household. It was like down number 5, or so it was like one from the bottom, which tells you why my house isn't always spotless, But and I realized, just doing this list, I'm like, wow, my list is upside down right now, and it made me realize that this is what happens to people's lives: is they don't make this list, they don't see where their priorities are, and suddenly, if they ever did, they realize 80% of their time is spent on the bottom of their list.
Yeah,
and
not focusing on the things that we really want to be focusing on.
Right. And for me, it's a reality. When you redo a house, this is what happens most of the time. So anyway, it made me realize, this is the correction I need to make. I need to realize that the house is way down on my list and vision improvement is up. So that was another.
So prioritizing was a bit of an eye-opener, so to speak.
It was an eye-opener, yes. So it did get me more focused on my eye exercise. I started doing more of those.
Good.
Since I have more time from the house as well. So,
excellent.
Yeah. So those two things. Oh, and then the diet thing. This is where relationship comes in. I got extra
You didn't eat. You didn't eat.
No, but I figured out. This is from the. There's a movie that you tried to get me to see, and then I saw it on this Gerson training that I did called Knives Over Forks.
Forks Over Knives.
Forks Over Knives. I would get it backwards. Forks Over Knives. And in it, I think it's this movie. I saw several movies while I was down there. They show a shark going through the water, and they say, "What motivates people?" Do you remember this one?
Yeah, I do.
And it says basically food and sex is what motivates people.
Right.
And then they ignore the sex and go into why people eat fats and sugars and salts, and how it triggers sort of an evolutionary survival instinct,
right?
And that in the wild we couldn't get as much of that stuff as we do now, and fast food is designed to trigger those sort of evolutionary survival instincts.
Oh yeah, like the glucose rush, the sugar rush,
exactly.
The fat thing, all that fat rush, because that's what we needed.
And it hits all these pleasure parts of the brain that are normally associated with, you've just downed a deer and you're gorging on it for, I don't want to gross people out here, but you're getting that rush of fat, or you've just hit a ripe tree full of fruit.
Yeah.
But you're only doing it once a week or something like that, not...
Because through fasting, we were designed to fast.
Yeah, not going to McDonald's and getting that shake and the double quarter Whopper whatever thing.
I'm really glad you got that right. It shows that you never eat fast food.
Not anymore, no.
A quarter Whopper.
Quarter Whopper thing.
I think you just created your own train there.
Yeah. So anyway, I found out my new motivation for cooking well is I'm cooking for a woman who needs to be on the Gerson diet. So I've been cooking for her and cooking for myself. So
good.
It's worked out that way. So
excellent.
I was blending sex with eating right. So anyway.
Sounds dangerous.
I know.
This is a family show, Richard.
That's true, yes. All right, so that was my that was the 2 vignettes. So there may be something more. I think that gets it. How was your week?
Good. I'm glad that we passed over there. We do try and keep these.
I got a little stumbled up there on that.
Yeah, really good. Not as eventful by the sounds of things.
Mine really wasn't that eventful. Don't get your hopes up.
I did for the first time this week. My peripheral vision exercises got me into trouble instead of being a positive thing this week. I've moved, right? We all know that I've moved recently. So where I work down at the school, I've been getting a new transport system. Normally, I used to walk 40 minutes every day, but I'm a little bit further out now. So as people also know, I've been getting up at 5:30 every morning and doing my eye exercises and really focusing on it. And I'm really seeing some great progress. So I'm really trying to work as hard as I can. And one of my exercises has been, when I'm on public transport, is tuning into my periphery and just using my periphery and not using my central vision. So I noticed the first thing was on the way here, and I completely missed my stop and ended up somewhere else down in San Francisco and had to walk back to yours afterwards.
Right.
And I thought that was going to be it. But again, the other day, I had a couple of unsuccessful days. One day was I managed to hit every bad luck thing on the way to work, which meant that I was just late. And then the other one was that I'd got on the public transport and the announcer said that my bus or train was going to be the next one. So I just got on. I didn't even think to look at the direction. And so I'm sitting on, I'm really focused in my periphery, and I'm noticing the lights going past in the tunnel. And can I see the station? Can I see people moving in the station? And then we come out of the tunnel, and I'm like, right, I can notice the changing in lights. And we keep going, and I'm thinking, normally we turn at some point.
Like right away, actually.
Yeah, and I thought, oh, wow, I didn't even notice that in my periphery. That's how weak my periphery is. So we keep going, and I'm noticing, I'm like, wow, I can notice that that's a tree. I can see that that's a building. There's some more trees. And I thought, the area that I normally go in isn't that pleasant on the way there. There isn't that many trees that I'm seeing. So then I used my central vision and realised I was on the wrong train, and I'd gone in a completely opposite direction. So
I've done that.
So I had to think fast on my feet and use my GPS system, which got me to the right place. But it was funny because at first I was like, oh my goodness, I can't believe this, that I ended up in the wrong place, and I was stressed because I was going to be late for my client. But afterwards I realised that it's actually really positive that I was able to just use my periphery for one, and two, that I actually noticed the trees and buildings that it didn't look like my normal surroundings, which if you think about it is pretty amazing.
That is true.
So in the end, I was really glad that I did get lost, and I did get
So
on the
when
wrong
you were
train.
on the train, you were looking forward within the train. You weren't looking outside. Well, that is impressive, actually. You're right. That you would notice where you were.
That my environment felt wrong.
Like where you were. The where system.
The what and where system.
Yeah.
I'm getting back the where system.
Yeah.
Without the GPS on my phone.
Yeah.
So so that was quite a drama. But in the end, I was pretty pleased about it. So I'm using my central vision a little bit more every now and then, or I'm just going to make sure that I'm on the right train in the first place. Yeah. So I was pretty pleased about that. And then just throughout the week, really, just been dedicating a lot more time. My diet's been going very well. I've managed to juice 3 times a day every day so far this week, and stick to a relatively healthy diet. And quite a few more observations with my peripheral vision this week. And it's a shame we didn't just record our lunch conversation.
I know.
Because I think I just exhausted the conversation now. But in general, just really becoming more engaged with my periphery. And I said to you before that for the first time I actually noticed central vision.
Right.
I spent a good 2 hours really working on the periphery and doing some peripheral meditation and really trying to engage the periphery. And I went outside to my back deck, and I was able to have a broad picture of everything around me. There was a couple of houses, a big tree in the middle. I could even see the deck and some of the side houses and some side trees. And I noticed as I was looking forward that a couple of branches in the center of the tree were clear, and everything else was pretty fuzzy and sort of had the static around it. Yeah. So before I thought it was just the static. But then I looked at the house on the top left-hand corner, and the area of the tree that was clear was now fuzzy. Right. And where I was looking at the house was then clear. And I thought, well, what's going on here? So I moved from place to place, like we suggest in the shifting. And I noticed that I could change what's clear and what's blurry. And I realized for the first time I was really seeing the fovea, the macula, the central vision that sees clear detail, and the periphery
that doesn't.
Yeah. So that sort of became an exercise for me after that, and I was playing with it for a while. The idea that I could use my central vision and my periphery at the same time. And also that I had this clear, not clear thing, and also that I could maintain a full image, where normally my focus is so central because of the RP that I sort of switch off from the world around me, and it's all about what's right in front of me.
Yeah. And we were talking at lunch it's not just people with RP that need to do this, that a lot of people, this is one of Bates' first insights, was most people don't realize that they have a very small area of clear surrounded by a blurry peripheral vision. Mm-hmm. And he professed that you really need to experience this just exactly the way you experienced it.
Yeah.
And a lot of our listeners might believe that they have clear vision. You know, I see clearly everywhere.
Yeah.
And the fact that they believe that and don't experience it is a bit of a detriment to their experience of getting clear vision. Ironically, you have to admit that most of your vision is blurry as a way of getting clearer vision, because you're really supposed to have just that clear central vision. Yeah.
Yeah, and I guess I feel like we've tried explaining this to people before,
right.
And I guess the difficulty is when you have clear, good vision, you wouldn't describe it as blurry, what we describe.
Right, we've had that trouble.
So
yeah.
I can't remember what they said, fuzzy, or it just wasn't as detailed. I can't remember how they described it. But anyway, just when you look at a scene, whatever you're looking at, try and notice if it's crisper and clearer, and then what around you is slightly different.
I still think people, even these people who said, no, it's not blurry, may be deceiving themselves, that they may be using memory to go, that's clear. Mm-hmm. And once they look at it, it's clear, it is really clear. And they look away from it, they go, it's clear. But they're really using memory to fill in that clarity, that lack of clarity when they start using it. I can't believe that people, they're not supposed to see clearly out of their peripheral vision. So maybe it's just a semantics thing too. So what clear means.
It might be with the scotomas or something that I don't know.
Yeah, that maybe we do see differently, but yeah.
And finally, I guess I was trying to take, a few weeks ago, I did my surprise bike ride. I achieved achieved one of my goals a few years early. I wasn't meant to do that.
Right.
And I did put a picture up on Facebook of me riding a bike that I like to see that a lot of people liked. I appreciate that. But I said that it wasn't really going to be a goal until I consciously did a bike ride, not by accident. So I'm in the process of booking a trip where I'm going to go for a bike ride for a couple of days. Probably up in like Napa Valley or something where there isn't as many cars.
Yeah.
So that is in the pipeline. I want to say next weekend, but the way everything's going so busy at the moment, then it's not happening. But that effort is there, and I've put that little goal out there to try and achieve it within a short space of time. And just going to go purchase the best hard hat I can get, and some knee pads and some elbow pads.
Yeah.
Or maybe I could even just tie some mattresses to the side of the bike. If I ever fall off the bike, I just land on a mattress.
That could be good. It could be hard to ride.
Yeah. If there's any engineers out there that could figure out how I could do that, then let me know. I'm sure it's just a thing of balance.
Yeah.
I reckon we can do it.
Yeah.
Well, great. I think it's about a good time to move on to topic of the week.
And the topic of the week this week is 3 successful strategies for learning eye exercises, part 2, reinforcement.
And this is really an important thing. I guess in particular, both Richard and I have been teachers in the past, and also myself actually teaching physical education. Mm-hmm. This was really drilled into us all those years about reinforcing to help people learn and relearn a skill. So last week we talked about demonstration and how it's important to actually see an exercise being performed. Some people are more visual learners, some are more auditory.
Right.
So when you have somebody explaining and doing an exercise, then you learn that way.
Right.
Well, now once you've got that demonstration, you've seen it, then you can also now move to the reinforcement stage,
right,
where you're really trying to take that skill and cement it into your long-term memory or into habit.
Right. So you need to start trying it yourself the way you think you've just learned it, basically. Mm-hmm. And then you do need someone correcting you on that. And then you need to repeat, hopefully, the then corrected version over and over until it's cemented into your... You describe it as going from short-term to long-term memory. Mm-hmm. So...
Yeah, you really kind of think of it when you first learn a skill, then it goes up into the short-term memory. This is why they recommend that I know when I was at university and they said that after the lecture, you want to take the lecture notes and read it an hour later, and then maybe, the next day. And that reinforcement and that repetition of looking at the same material means that it turns from the short-term memory into the long-term memory, which is, I guess, one reason why they say you never learn how to ride a bike, because you've just done it so many times.
Yeah.
And you just have that repetition. And eventually here we hope, this is why we say that it's going to become habit.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say the worst thing you can do, but if you repeat a skill and you learn it perfectly, but you learn the wrong skill, then it's going to be that much harder to then undo that habit.
Yeah.
So this is certainly why we recommend that you try and learn the technique in the correct way.
Right. And rather than jumping right into freelancing, which a lot of people kind of like to do, and I it's hard to suppress their creativity, but it's better if you could repeat it from what you've been demonstrated. And if you don't have, the best scenario is to have one of us standing there correcting you. But if you don't, then if you have a video, look at the video over and over and listen. We try and be very specific in either our audios or our videos to go through, this is an important point. So we rarely say something, well, we do blather on at times, but we almost always make a list of very important points we want to get across. Yeah. And so we will say them somewhere in the audio or the video.
And we also know common mistakes that everybody makes. So say, for example, when we do the sunning exercises, when somebody's doing the exercise, we tend to say things like, make sure you're getting your chin to your shoulder, or make sure your head is tilted slightly out 45 degrees, or there's all these I'm not saying that nobody's special, but a lot of people tend to make the common mistake. So you really can correct that, and without having us there right in front of you, it is able for you to get the correct technique. And then when you, through repetition, then it means that you're doing it over and over again, and you learn that skill, and it just becomes habit. And I find with these exercises, or like anything, when you're learning something new, it seems like it's taking a long time, or it's an effort to do it. Like say the first time you do the sunning exercise, it could feel like you only do it for 10 minutes, but it could feel like half an hour. And then after a while, I have to set my timer because I just get lost in the exercise. And if I don't catch myself, then I'll, be there all day.
Yeah. I'm probably an example of someone who too cocky, and I learned quickly from coming down and seeing Mayor Schneider, took it home and didn't have something to refer to. And so I did develop some bad habits early on that, then I'm doing it for 2 years and suddenly I'm doing it in his presence again. And he goes, you shouldn't be doing that. So this is a good process, this reinforcement of the right way of doing it.
And we do always recommend, because this work is so placid, that, you learn the correct technique, you do it, and then you adapt it yourself.
Right.
There's rules of thumb in the beginning, but the way this practice even come around was through breaking the mold and doing that anyway. Right. So we really want to encourage as many people as possible to invent their own exercises, their own adaptations. Right. But it's important that you learn the principles first and the correct technique first, and then
it's really like any other art form. This is what they teach in schools for art forms too. You learn the technique, the classic technique or whatever. Then you improvise from there. So
I think that's also why they say you're better off learning to drive from maybe an instructor, or because when you pick up your parents' bad habits or whatever when you learn through driving with them, or people. I had a friend that lived on a farm, and he had been driving the tractor all the time and driving the car around the field. So when he went to take his driving, he'd been driving for 5 years. Right. When he went to take his test, he failed because he had all these bad habits that everyone does after their test. Right. Driving with one hand and all that. Right. But I guess just to pass that test, you need to have the skills there in the first place. Right. So I guess part of correction, and something that was such an important part of my teaching, was positive reinforcement. Right. And I even did multiple projects on this and investigations when I was a teacher, the psychology of child management. And, we found that when you do positive reinforcement, you're so much more likely to learn it than you are if it's a negative reinforcement. So this is, another good way that if you've got somebody there saying, that's good, or yes, you're doing it correct, or if you feel improvements, say you do sunning and it seems clearer afterwards, well, then that's positive reinforcement.
Yeah. Again, I tend to be on the negative side. So it was like, when I was learning these things, I was like, I got to do these exercises. I took that sort of type A, I've got to do these exercises to improve. The nuns or something. I'm not sure.
The nuns of eye exercises.
The nuns of eye.
That's a new video.
Yeah, there we go. Anyway, and when Mayer was very positive, he is very positive in general. So when the two things he would say to me is enjoy what you're seeing while you're doing. So when you're sunning, you're not just, I got to do sunning because my vision depends on it. That kind of anxiety attack kind of approach, but more like, wow, this feels good on my eyes. It feels, I'm bathing my eyes. And he would say, doesn't it feel good on your eyes? And then, as you say, afterwards, isn't your vision clearer? And those are two things. Like, you actually can enjoy the eye exercises. Yeah, treat them as a positive experience. And then and then appreciate the results, the positive results. So,
and I suppose all the time the eye exercises, and I guess this is why we did the eye exercise. One of the reasons why we did the eye exercise express is because people saw it as a barrier. Having the time to do I've got to do these eye exercises. Right. I've got all this stuff to do, and you're doing it, and you're resenting the exercise as you're doing it.
Right.
It's all just negative reinforcement.
Yeah.
So instead, you really want to just take that time out. So right, I've got these 10 minutes, 20 minutes, an hour. Yeah. I'm going to do this exercise. And as you're doing it, you want to be observant and see how your vision's feeling. I mean, just what you observed today, you were saying how you noticed things were clearer and crisper.
Yeah.
Now, if you weren't somebody that was observant about your vision, well, you would never have picked up on that at all.
Exactly, yeah. And I wouldn't have learned that I need to do that exercise, Or that it improves my vision, really.
Yeah. Well, some really good information there on this topic, and I think it's a good time to move on to question of the week.
And the question of the week this week comes from an 18-year-old YouTube viewer who asks a very general but serious question of, I'm having substantial vision loss. What should I do?
And I guess... it's funny. So it's one of those things where all this information just rushes forward. And, you want to go on for hours about everything here. But I think the first thing is to sort of establish is, all the viewer said was I've lost substantial amount of vision.
Right.
And to find out what it is that you're losing and why.
Right. I mean, we immediately. Our gut instinct is we want to call this person up and say exactly what's your condition, but we also want to tell him, go to as many doctors as you can to exactly determine what's going on in your vision.
And this is certainly one reason why, we're so strongly in favor for seeing ophthalmologists and eye doctors, because it's just that information is so valuable.
Right.
And sometimes it can be a fine line because a lot of people come away with negative feelings.
Right.
But that's not necessarily down to them. I guess it's down to how you deal with the information that they're telling you. And that's why doing the eye exercises is so good, because you're positively working in a particular direction.
And this is part of taking healing into your own hands, is going to the doctor, but going as your own advocate of like, I'm going to get the information. I'm going to get what he is offering me. I'm going to consider it. I'm going to research it. I'm going to learn about my condition. And eye exercises are one of the tools that I have at my disposal as well. And I'm going to be positive and look towards healing. So,
and especially, one of the first questions that popped up for me is, was it a recent substantial loss of vision?
Right.
Or has it been something that's been gradual over time?
Yeah.
Because if it's a recent, all of a sudden loss of vision, then I guess, it's that much more important that you really start working on your eyes.
Right.
Really try and figure out maybe what it is that's causing that. Sometimes it could be something in the diet. It could be anxiety. It could, just be a speed up in the condition.
Right.
In which case we would certainly recommend, normally that shows that the body is shifting in one direction, and that's when you really want to focus and do, several hours a day of the exercises to really try and get it to plateau, I guess, and stop that from
the progression.
Proceeding.
Yeah, we were just discussing this at lunch. It occurred to me that, a lot of people's intention here would be, I'm going to go to the doctor, find out whether it's genetic or not genetic, if it's lifestyle or genetic. And we were just talking at lunch. It's not that simple. It's like, even if it is genetic, then something in your lifestyle may be pushing you towards that genetic tendency to be manifest in your vision.
Yeah, in particular, we were talking about presbyopia and how we tend to have a predisposition. As we age, the muscles get weaker, and it's harder to converge and harder to accommodate to see things from near. But it doesn't mean that we can't overcome it and not strengthen to improve it.
Yeah. So, as basically we're dealing with this question. It's a very general question, but I guess in general we're reacting to it. We want a lot more information. Yeah. So the first thing we would say is go to your doctor, see what they're offering, and also we want that information if we were treating you for the condition as well.
And that's also why when we have sessions, we tend to recommend at least 6 or 10, because it's initially because it's really that discovery process of figuring out what's going on. Vision, people don't realize vision is such a complex thing. And that it takes time to figure it out and establish what's actually going on. And then once you know what it is, then you can start working on improving it.
Right.
So instead of it just being this big all-round thing, then we can try and, get to the cracks of what's actually going on here.
Yeah.
And then start working on it. Now, another thing that people don't tend to think of is that in this situation, losing a substantial amount of vision, just maintaining where he's at now and preventing continual loss is an achievement.
Yeah.
Right now. And people don't think about this. That people just want to improve. And if they don't see big improvements, well, then what's the point of doing it?
Or if they don't get back to exactly where they were before.
Exactly.
It's like, why should I do it? Well, there's actually a huge difference between, say, 2400 vision and 2100 vision. Huge difference. And
we really, want to work on maintaining the vision that we have, which is, again, difficult for people because people aren't happy with the vision that they have to begin with. I guess otherwise they wouldn't be doing the eye exercises. But once you've achieved that, maintenance, then you can work on improving your eyesight from there. And people want to sort of just skip from A to Z without doing the rest.
But the other thing I was going to say about some question like this is we would put this person in a category of, you need to take this very seriously. You need to, you can't just fool around and do 10 minutes of eye exercises a day. There's a difference between someone like this and someone who maybe wants to get rid of their glasses. So
or just like presbyopia, where it's just a weak muscle.
Yeah,
and you just need to re-strengthen that muscle. But certainly with things, retinal problems or anything like that, then you really need to spend the time. Just like anything physical, right? If you tear your shoulder and you injure your shoulder, well, for the first couple of months, you have to work at rehabilitating that. And then you can sort of tamper off a little bit. But certainly that initial push is very important and is key into getting some success.
Well, and it could be as simple. I mean, this is where we're working in the dark, but excuse the pun, but we don't know. It could be with this individual that he's doing something in his lifestyle that's really degrading his vision that he could stop, tomorrow.
Yeah.
And it might really stop the whole progression. It's so hard to know. But
so now, in particular, we really wanted to answer it that way first because it is a very generic question. But the comment was actually on a retinitis pigmentosa video that we've done. So I guess you could assume that it was retinitis pigmentosa, but it's very important that we never make assumptions. And that, even some people think it might be that, but then it might be something else. Like,
we've seen that diagnoses change over time too. So
we wanted to answer it generically first and now say that, if it is retinitis pigmentosa, and obviously we want to spend a lot of time doing the peripheral vision exercises. We want to make sure that our nutrition is really up to scratch. We're getting lots of, carrots, beta carotene.
Yeah, vitamin A. Yeah.
Lots of the greens where we're getting the lutein to help keep the peripheral vision nice and healthy. Mm-hmm. We also want to rest the central vision, but again, it's something that you might need to exercise the central vision as well. So we can't be, really too specific without knowing. But
right.
Ideally, you really want to be taking at it from a holistic approach, I guess we talked about before. Mm-hmm. And I guess what we're saying, with the emphasis there of the loss of substantial vision, then it is important that you spend more time in the dark, you do lots of palming,
right?
All these resting exercises that's going to help rest the eyes. And then we want to try and stimulate and activate those rod cells in the periphery to get them as active as possible, try and get them to maintain. And also something that Richard and I have been really talking about a lot recently is you want to keep the brain engaged as much as possible. So even if you are losing substantial vision there and it is rod dystrophy and you have no control, and let's say you can't improve that, we still want to keep the brain engaged with what's already there.
Right.
Because that in itself, the brain will start to switch off in the periphery, especially when we tell ourselves we're losing our peripheral vision.
Right.
I can't see in the periphery anymore. The doctors are telling you can't see in the periphery anymore.
Right.
You fail the periphery test, you're bumping into things.
Right.
And this again is the negative reinforcement that you can't see in the periphery, so the brain just stops using it.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, and we all know that if you don't use something,
you lose it.
Then you lose it. So it's important that you stay engaged that way as well. So so certainly a few things there.
General things we can say. Even that's general about RP. There, once you learn the case more specifically, you can say something more specific. So.
Okay, great. Well, we hope you enjoyed this week's podcast. If you want to get a little bit more information, you could head over to our website at envisionselfhealing.com. And if you have a particular condition, then head over to the conditions tab and hopefully you'll see it there with a bunch of exercises and some eye exercise programs so you can start working on your vision as soon as possible. You can also get your hands on a free ebook called A Modern Day Guide for Improving Eyesight, where we talk about a lot of basic information and where the eye exercises can sort of play a big part in your life and can start improving your eyesight, and indeed how your lifestyle itself could actually be making your vision worse. You can also follow us on Facebook at our Facebook fan page. To search for Envision Self-Healing in Facebook, or you can indeed follow us on Twitter. Just check out our website and you will see our Twitter accounts there. If you're listening to this on iTunes, then just check out the top right or left-hand corner and you'll see a subscribe button, and it means that you'll get our next episode sent to you. And the next episode is actually going to be the third and final strategy on helping to learn the eye exercises, which is understanding, which is obviously a very important aspect of learning the eye exercises. And just good luck with your eye exercises this week and happy healing.
And have a good week.